Hello and welcome back, and do you see this tiny little box here I've got in my hands? This is QNAP's new USB4 to 10GBE adapter. Now, we first spoke about this teeny tiny little device around about 9 or 10 months ago over in Taipei during Computex 2024 when the brand first revealed this sneaky little device here. Now, straight away out the gate, there's going to be some of you that already are going to be halfway typing in the comments straight away. Who cares? Thunderbolt 10GBE has been a thing for a long time. And this device rocking out right now at $249 seems to be a new refresh with a new high price for something that already exists. Now, let's explain. Let's break that down a little bit, shall we? For those that don't know, USB 4 is kind of pretty much the same as Thunderbolt 4. The protocols are largely the same. There's slight deviations between them in terms of the up and down, but overall, USB 4 and Thunderbolt 4 are the same thing. So if your device has got USB 4 or your device has Thunderbolt 4, you can take advantage of this. But the crux of the matter is, Thunderbolt 4 also works with Thunderbolt 3, and QNAP, along with a bunch of other brands, has Thunderbolt 3 to 10GBE devices already in the market. So why on earth would you spend 249 nicker on something that you can get QNAP's older generation device for 200 nicker, and better yet, there are Thunderbolt 3 to 10GB adapters in the market right now for as low as 150 nicker. So let's break down what makes this a decent enough purchase, or more precisely, why you may not even need to go for it at all. So hitting the nail on the head, what the hell makes this any different or indeed better than just going for a Thunderbolt 3 adapter that is supported on Thunderbolt 4 and USB 4 devices? Well, it's that first point. Not all Thunderbolt 4 and USB 4 outputs actually do support Thunderbolt 3. Most of them do, but some of them don't. A lot of the chips that were changed during hardware shortages and during the pandemic actually has led to some Thunderbolt devices not working 100% within the latest generation of Thunderbolt 4 and Thunderbolt 3. The majority of them do, but not all of them. Now, a lot of that comes down to the controller configuration. Now, a lot of devices that are running on USB 4 choose to do so because of not only easier licensing compared with the Thunderbolt 4 licensing and branding. Again, things have simplified a great deal since Thunderbolt 3, but it's fully not ironed out. But on top of that, deploying USB 4 on a lot of devices can actually be done with fewer lanes within the hardware. You may have heard me talk about a lot of USB 4 devices in the last 12 months or so, and a number of them having one or two USB 4 ports on them. But even though USB 4 and Thunderbolt 4 can achieve 40 gigabits per second, lots of hardware vendors are rolling out USB 4 on ×2 or even ×1 lane distribution. That could mean that some USB 4 devices can only actually achieve a maximum 20 gigabits per second. And it's on those devices where we see slight questionable support of Thunderbolt 3 devices, not just in terms of the bandwidth, but the lane allocation. Now, the controller inside this adapter is from Marvell. It's an AQC113, and the previous generation of this device, that was Thunderbolt 3, was running on an QNA-UC10G1T. Now, you can break down into the specifications on Marvell's website. The big takeaway is to do with lane distribution. The previous generation of this was taking advantage of a 3x4 lane CPU, and that allowed the Thunderbolt 4 connection to communicate with that 10GBE connection, giving substantial overflow there in terms of bandwidth, with a potential 40 gigabits per second at one end, only having to worry about 10 gig coming out the end of the 10GBE on the previous gen. Now, this one, of course, thanks to that support of the AQC113, that controller inside not only supports 3x4 configurations, it also supports 4x1 lane configurations, which still gives 2 gigabytes per second transmission. It also supports 3x2 or even 3x1. Then the flexibility of that controller means that there's going to be broader and easier support thanks to the more efficient allocation of PCIe lanes across different devices, and that controller on here that will be able to communicate with them better. That's one of the main reasons for USB 4 to 10GBE adapters still being very much in their infancy due to some of the hard-locked lane and speed configurations on the PCIe of the previous gen. But talking more about the device itself, it's available right now in a copper configuration, as you can see here, a 10G base T. There's also an SFP version of it available, and both devices are USB-C bus powered there, so no additional power, and it arrives with a C-to-C cable included there. Now, one thing I will highlight is this represents a new expanding arm of devices here, and the next generation of this, or at least the same series of this that they're working towards, hopefully by Q2 or Q3, is a dual port version of this. So imagine a single adapter that has a USB Type-C 40 gig connection on one end, and on the other end, two 10GBE connections, or moreover, a 25 gig connection. This adapter is expanding out. It's the first entry in a series, so do keep that in mind. And that's what I mean about the development and expansion within USB 4 and Thunderbolt 4 connectivity there happening a lot. And this is the gateway into that. I will also argue that in terms of heat, this is very well put together. I can only speak for this device, because I've not had the dual port, the 25 gig ports, which are on the horizon at some point to test, but this one during extended 45 minutes of 10G transfers on both AJA and during the Windows testing later on, we only saw the temperatures get to about 44 to 45 degrees peak, and when it was in idle it dropped down to about 38, 39. That is not low, but I will say for an active 10G to USB 4 connection, those temperatures are pretty impressive, especially when you factor in there is no active cooling in this. The whole thing is a metal external casing, and inside there is an enormous heatsink with the controllers inside directly attached to their own heat dissipating panel on the other side. This whole thing is one large heatsink. Now, in terms of performance, I'm pleased to say that it really did hit the mark in every single test. When we went for Atto, we did 3 different tests at 256 meg, 1 gig and 4 gig, and achieved full saturation pretty much consistently from beginning to end. Now, we did a Windows transfer of 52 gig of data. Now, 52 gig of data contained 441 files of mixed variation from media to simple docs, and on a 10 gig transfer, we managed to transfer the full 52 gig in 2 minutes and 48 seconds. That's an average of 0.3 gigabytes per second, which isn't too shabby for mixed file sizes. When we went for AJA, again, AJA, we went for a 1 and 4 gig transfer. And again, the file transmission were around 850 to 900 over 650 to 750. Again, those are 1080p 1 to 4 gig file transfers. Finally, with a 10 gig QNAP device using iPerth, we did a 10 gig transfer and achieved pretty much near full saturation consistently across multiple tests. Now, all of that adds up to this adapter doing what it says it will do. What about the things that it doesn't though? So for a start, I will say I didn't have a QNAP USB 4 equipped device, or their Thunderbolt 4 series, to connect this to see if this would allow me to conveniently add a 10G port to their system. So I'm still waiting to see if that would work. But I will say, when I connected this to the UStar GEM system, which had a USB 4 port, and when I connected the device to a Ugreen NAS, on the case of the UStar and indeed a Minis forum, both of them saw the device immediately. I wasn't able to adopt them within Unraid, but I was at least able to see them in a native OS, Windows environment, which shouldn't come as a surprise with the driver. But when I tried to connect it to a NAS system that had a USB 4 port, a Ugreen or a Thunderbolt 4 port, I was unable to adopt it. So again, it's going to be interesting to see how far QNAP take this, and I would have liked to have been able to test this on a USB 4 QNAP or a Thunderbolt 4 QNAP just to see how well that would have worked. Which leads me right back to the question I had at the beginning of this video. This thing is $249 at launch, and right now you can get Thunderbolt 3 to 10GBE equipped adapters again for around 150 to 200, so a saving of between 50 to 100 nicker. Alternatively, there are now USB to 5 gig adapters in the market for as little as $30. And yes, that is half the bandwidth of this, but still, $30 versus $249 is a tough, convincing sell. Ultimately, I do like this device, and I love what QNAP are doing with expanding out into this with the 2-port and the potential for a 25 gig there being added as well as controllers become more widely available. That is something that excites me right now. However, unless you have a USB 4 or Thunderbolt 4 ready system, I'm not sure I can recommend this to everyone. I want to see how well it's going to be adapted by NAS systems. I want to see how the rest of the portfolio is going to expand beyond this. But if you already have a Thunderbolt 4 equipped 10GB adapter, or you are running a system that doesn't have USB 4, do yourself a favor and stick to these, because you need a USB 4 system in order to take advantage of this. It's not backwards compatible, and you may leave yourself slightly disappointed. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. I look forward to speaking to you more. There'll hopefully be the written review linked below. And we're going to do some more testing with this device in due course, as we've got a few other systems to play with there. There's links in the description as well if you were to get hold of one of these for yourself. And if you found the video helpful, and if you were going to go to those shops anyway, make sure those two things are true. If that is true, then do use those links. It allows us, me and Eddie here at NAS Compatibility, it's just us, to get a small commission, and it allows us to keep doing what we do. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.